and I saw a sign and it said psychic. I went in there and I'll never forget this. She said, "I hate to be the one to have to tell you this." She said, "In the middle of August, something's going to happen to you, and you cannot fathom the severity of this. Life as you know it is about to be over with. Your whole world's about to get ripped apart." As soon as I graduated high school, I went to Iowa and started working on a pipeline. I went to a pipeline job in Michigan, and I met a girl up there, and I was with her for like 8 years. I got into some not so good stuff. I started got doing drugs and getting into that lifestyle.
Drug use, or are you selling
No,
drugs?
I
Oh, okay.
was selling them. I was on my way back from Albuquerque, New Mexico, with a trunk load of pot, and I got pulled over. Ended up bailing out. I was sick, man, over that, and I thought, I'm about to go to prison for this. And this was like before it wasn't legal in Michigan yet, but it was right around the time they were starting to legalize it. But yeah, I got out, and I was on my way going through Chicago, and I saw a sign in this place, and it said psychic. And I had been to a psychic in Michigan that knew things about me, like that things that were going on in my life. Like, she just immediately started talking about it, and it just blew my mind away. Like, there's no way somebody could have known these things. So I believed in that. So I saw the sign and I went in there. As soon as I walked through the door, the lady, she was like she had like jet black hair and dark eyes. And she was like a gypsy, I guess. And she said, "What's this terrible thing that's happened to you?" And I said, "Well, I got pulled over on Interstate 94 with something I wasn't supposed to have. And police took my truck." She said, "They took everything." And I said, "Yeah, pretty much." And she said, "Here, shuffle these cards." So I sit down and shuffle these tarot cards, and one card just flipped out and landed face down on the floor. And I didn't think anything of it. I was a 27-year-old kid and a young man, I guess you could say. And I reached down to pick the card up, and I guess she knew there was a reason why that card came out, and she yelled from across the table and said, "Don't touch it." And she screamed, like it caused me to jump in my seat a little bit. And she got up from her chair and she walked around and squatted down on the floor and flipped that card over. And when she did, she kind of gasped. She was like, and just looked at me crazy. And I said, "Why are you looking at me like that?" She said, I'll never forget this. She said, "I hate to be the one to have to tell you this, but this terrible thing that's happened to you, the reason why you came here, this thing that you're so worried about," she said, "you might as well forget about it because it's the least of your problems." She said, "In the middle of August, something's going to happen to you, and you cannot fathom the severity of this." She said, "Life as you know it is about to be over with. Your whole world's about to get ripped apart. It's going to look really bad at first, and you're going to think about giving up, but you're not going to give up. You're going to come back from it, and you're going to live a happy life and have 3 children." And
That's pretty specific. I mean, it's not 100% specific. That's more than a generality.
well, I mean, as obviously that it changed my whole life, meeting that lady, and then what actually ended up happening to me in the middle of August, just like she said. So in the middle of August, matter of fact, August has 31 days. I went out on August the 16th. I had gone to, so I was out on bail. I told my lawyer, like, "Look, I got a job offer in Pine Island, New York, to go work on a pipeline." He's like, "Well, as your attorney, I can't legally advise you to leave the state, but do what you got to do." So I said, "All right, I'll be at all my court dates or whatever." So I went to Pine Island, New York, to work on a pipeline job, and I had met this girl. I mean, if you Google it, they made a big deal about her, like being a dancer, exotic dancer, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And I was out there. Matter of fact, she bought me the bus ticket to go there because the police had taken my truck. And anyway, I was there for 5 days, and she called me, was like crying, and she's like, "I want to come out there with you." And I was just like, "All right, cool." So I was living in this place. It was called the Legends Hotel and Resort, but it used to be the Playboy Club. Like, Hugh Hefner built that place.
Right.
There was swimming pools and tennis courts, and it was out at like a ski. There was a ski slope, and it used to be a really popping place. But by the time I lived there, it was a little bit dilapidated, kind of run down. They called it the Shining. And but anyways, it was full of pipeline workers. I want to say there were like 700 guys there. And I went to work and was like, "Hey, man, I met this stripper at the strip club, and she wants to come out here and live with me." And I was happy about it. Like I was lonely, like it was, sure. But anyway, so that guy, I guess he went and told somebody, and then that guy went and told somebody, and then like by the time the girl pulled up to that place, it was like that whole building was just waiting to see this girl that was coming to stay there. And I knew it wasn't going to go over well. Like, and I told her, I said, "Look, like I was working crazy hours. I worked on the environmental crew, and it was my job to like contain like erosion control and mud, like get mud getting on the roads and mud washing away, like." And it rained, it torrentially poured, the whole time we were there, it seemed. And so I was working like 90 hours a week. Like I would literally go to work at 6 a.m. and then work till like 3 a.m. and come home and pass out with like muddy ass clothes on for like 2 hours and then jump back awake and run out the door, with the same clothes on. And so there was a lot of guys that weren't, they were working 6 10s, 10 hours a day, coming home at 5 o'clock and going to the hotel bar. Well, I told the girl, her name was Emily. I said, "Look, it's not that I'm jealous. I don't want you talking to me. It ain't like that." I said, "But I don't think it's a very good idea for you to be down at that hotel bar with my coworkers. Like, if you want to hang out, like, go down the street, go to a local place in town, meet some local people, but don't be down there with my coworkers because these guys are kind of rough around the edges, you know what I mean? And somebody's going to say something to you or do something to you, and you're not going to like it. And you're going to come back crying to me, want me to do something about it. And look, I'm not even supposed to be out here, like I don't need to see no police."
Right.
I was afraid they were going to be like, "Oh, what are you doing in the state? You're out on bail," and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so anyway, like it wasn't a week later, she was come pick me up from the job. We would come back to the warehouse where we left from in the mornings. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I get in her car and she just looks at me. She's like, "Look, I got to tell you something. Like, I don't want to tell you this, but I feel like I have to." He's like, "There's this guy and they call him Frog, and like he grabbed my ass and asked, said a bunch of dirty stuff to her." And I was like, "I told you that's what was going to happen." And now, you know what I mean? And this is exactly what I did not want to happen. And I was like, "Look," I said, I'll find out who it is. I'll talk to the dude." And like, I seriously, I didn't want to fight nobody. Like I said, I did not want to see no cops. All I wanted to do was, get my paycheck and go to the house. But anyway, I go to work and I, uh, I asked somebody like, "Hey, who's this dude they call Frog?" And so apparently it got back to him that I was asking about him, asking who he was. So I'm coming home from work. It's probably 10 o'clock at night one night, which is probably like a early night to get off for me. But I had to walk past the hotel bar to get to get to the elevator. So I'm walking past the bar. As I'm walking up to it, I could see Emily was down there, and I'm just like, "Oh hell no!" Like, she done started this drama, and now she's back down here again. Like, I didn't really know what had happened yet. There was some stuff that had transpired, but that I didn't know about. Like, see, so there was a guy. His name was Paul, and I was cool with him. I didn't really mess with nobody that much outside of work, but me and this guy were pretty cool. And he worked on a different crew than me, but he heard about these guys, like they were planning to like jump me that night when I came home. So he went to the room and told Emily, like knocked on the door, like, "Hey, you need to call him and tell him like them guys are going to jump him when he comes through the door tonight." Well, I didn't get the call because she would blow my phone up at work, and we're not supposed to be on our phones, so I just had to turn the phone off. You know what I mean? It was getting to be a problem. So I never got the memo, that there was dudes waiting to jump me when I got home. But so she had, when she heard that, she went down there to like confront them, like, "Oh, why are you going to jump my boyfriend? What do you do?" You know what I mean? And I guess the dude, like, I don't know exactly what he did or what he said, but she ended up like punching him in the mouth with her keys. And then this big lady that was like cool with that group of guys, like, she beat the hell out of her. Like, I couldn't tell she was beat up when I first walked in because she was pretty far away from me. But anyway, so I'm walking past the bar, she comes running up to me trying to talk to me, and I'm just like ignoring her, like, I was mad. I was because she was down there, and I was like, this chick's bugging. So as I'm walking to the elevator, I hear somebody whistle, and I turn around and look, and it's this dude, Frog. And so, and it's crazy because I kind of knew who he was because like a week or two earlier we had been. I think she said she wanted to go hunt for bears because there's a lot of bears up in that area in Vernon, New Jersey. So we were like driving around looking for bears, and we had come back, and we go to get in the elevator, and this little weird little dude gets up from the bar where he was sitting and follows us in the elevator and like is all up in our faces, just acting super weird. And if she had just told me like it was that weird dude from the elevator the other day, like none of this probably would have ever happened because I would have known exactly who it was. I mean, I can't say that, but anyway, this was who it was. The little dude, Frog. He ran up on me swinging, and I'm not gonna let nobody punch me in the face. Like I protected myself, and put a stop to that real quick. And the security ran in too, and I kept it moving. You know what I mean? I wasn't trying to stick around. I was just trying to get to my room. So then I get in the elevator, and this dude's buddies followed me in the elevator and like jumped me in the elevator. So I've got my head down, and Emily's behind me, and I'm like fighting these two big ass dudes. Finally get them out of the elevator doors, and the doors shut. And then I turned around and looked at Emily, and that was the first time when I saw like she was really beat up. Like she had two black eyes, and I'm pretty sure her nose was broke because it was like that fat. It was so swollen. And she actually went to the police. She went to the police and like filed a police report. And the cops were like, they told her, "We believe you've been sexually assaulted, and we'll investigate this." And obviously, she was physically assaulted. She was had two black eyes and a broken nose. And but they didn't care. They filed a police report that was like 3 sentences long. On such and such a day, Emily Henry walked in the police and uh, said she'd been sexually assaulted. That was pretty much it. Then
But it
later,
wasn't a sexual, but you're saying she didn't say she was sexually assaulted,
no,
she
she
just said
did.
she
She
was.
told him that the guy had like grabbed her ass and
Oh,
you
okay.
know
Yeah, yeah,
that
got
and
it.
said some perverted things to her. So, but yeah, they were like, that's the one thing I remember from that report. Like they told her, well, we believe that was a sexual assault, and we're going to investigate it. But then they didn't do anything until months later when the big incident happened. But that's not even the end. I'm trying to like keep it linear for you. So after that happened, I got up to my room, and I was pretty pissed, that them guys had ganged up on me like that, and especially like when I didn't even want to fight nobody. Um, so we go to work the next day, and every Monday morning, we would have a safety meeting. And, like, there's a guy up there like talking in a microphone, talking about you know incidents, like safety, uh, reports. Like if somebody got hurt at work, like they had to report that. But if nobody gets hurt, like they it's it's just a safety meeting. People probably know what that means, but so at the safety meeting, the guy starts talking about people outside of work uh, need to mind their manners and act civilized at the hotel because we represent the company. You know what I mean? And like he was talking about us. Like
Right.
he heard about us fighting at the hotel, and he was basically saying like y'all need to act like somebody and quit that. But during the whole time, those guys were over there like pointing and smiling and laughing and uh, heckling me. I don't know what the word for it is. You know what I mean? Whatever. And so like when it was over, I walked past them and I was just like, yeah, y'all ain't tough. If it takes three of you to beat me up, like you guys ain't tough. Um, so anyway, they're like, "What time you get off? We'll be." And I said, "I don't know. It's always different." And they said, "Well, we'll be waiting for you." And I was like, "Yeah, y'all go ahead and do that again." And I didn't back down from 'em, but so anyway, like a week or two maybe later, I'm up in my room, and Emily had gone back to Michigan. She was in college at Michigan State University to get like a degree or a certificate to become a teacher. And she had like one last test that she had to take, so she drove all the way to East Lansing, took the test, and drove all the way back. Well, she called me and was like, "I'm like 5 minutes away. Can you come down and like walk me in so nobody bothers me?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that." And then she goes, "Hey, stop at the bar and get us a drink." She said, "Get me a vodka and tonic and get you whatever you want." So I was like, "All right." So I go up to the bar. I order her a vodka and tonic. I ordered me a double shot of Crown Royal and cherry Coke. And I'm sitting there waiting for the bartender to make the drinks. And this guy came up to me and he's like, "Hey, man, I know you don't know me, but I just came over here to tell you, like Frog and his boys, they're over there on some bullshit again, and they're fixing to jump you again." He's like, "You ought to just go back to your room." I said, "Well, I appreciate the heads up, man, but I don't care if Hulk Hogan and Rodney Macho Man Savage and the Ultimate Warrior are down here. Like, I'm not running for nobody. They can just, if that's what they're gonna do, they can do it." So the uh the bartender gave me the drinks. I walked outside the little double doors. I'm walking down the sidewalk and I hear that whistle and the dude, "Hey, hey, hey." So I just think to myself, like, well, maybe if I just ignore him, you know what I mean? Maybe if I just pretend he ain't here, he'll just go away. Well, I just kept walking. I just didn't pay no attention to him. Well, he runs around me, around the sidewalk, off into the grass, and then he stands in front of me and like pokes his chest out, like blocking my way. And I was just like, "What, man?" He said, "You got my drinks." I was like, "What?" I was like, I was shocked. I didn't even know what to say to that. I said, "I don't think so, man." He said, "Yeah, I think so." So I'm just like, "All right, I know what it is." He wants to fight, whatever. So I turned around and set the drinks down on the sidewalk, and like before I could even set the drinks down, like the dude started like hooking off on me, like punching me in the back. And I set the drinks down, and I turned around and I beat his ass. And like during some, and I kept telling him, "Don't get up, don't get up, man. I'm gonna knock you back out again." And like I said before, like I Mortal Kombated that dude, like, and that's what it was like. I was just, it was crazy, but he kept trying, he kept getting up, and I kept telling him, "Don't get up." But anyway, at some point, I got punched in the back of the head, and I turned around, and all his friends were there, and I was just like, "Look, I knew I couldn't beat them all up. I really wish, I know you guys don't want to see your friend get beat up, but I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to fight nobody. Um, if you don't want to see him get beat up, just take him and get him out of here." And I guess I kind of like struck a chord with them because they were like, "Well, I guess he kind of got a point." His friends were like, uh, "Yeah, he's got a point, Frog, and he's whooping your ass." And so Frog was like, he threw his arms out to the side. He's like, "I don't care. Hit me, hit me, hit me." And I was like, "I don't want to hit you, man. Just get out of my face. Just leave me alone, please." And about that time, Emily comes walking up out of the parking lot, and probably wondering where I was at because I told her I was on my way out there. And she looks and she sees me like out of breath and sees dude beat up, and she realizes what's going on, and she's like, "Oh no, not these guys again." And she said something, and Frog said, "Hey, Adelaide, I need you to go in the house. I gotta talk about stuff, and kids are not supposed to hear this." Um, so he was like, "I'll slap the out of you," and he started like charging over there to her, like advancing towards her, and I wasn't gonna let him touch her. So
Right.
I started, you know, I started. beat him up again, and about that's when the time like they all just like his little brother was there. His little brother come running like 40 miles an hour and just Goldberg speared me in the side. And I remember for like probably 3 weeks after that, like from my rib cage down to my knee, like my whole side just turned black, like it was bruised. Like, but so he like knocked me off of him, and then there was like one person had one arm, one person had this arm, another person had one leg, another person had like there was like four guys like holding me down. And now all of a sudden, Frog's tough as hell again. So he comes over trying to like punch me in the face, and somehow like I got my arms freed, and I grabbed him by the wrist, and I'm holding his wrist so he can't punch me in the face. And he said, "I don't give a fuck. I'll bite your nose off." And he like comes in to try to bite my nose, and Emily come out with some pepper spray. Now she told me that her boss at the Deja Vu in Lansing had given her that, but like looking back, I almost feel like she got it because that lady beat her up and she was scared,
Right.
you know. But I don't know. I just know that she told me it was given to her by her boss back in Lansing. But so she had that, and she sprayed dude in the face, and he was trying to bite my nose off. His face was right in my face, so it blinded me too. And everybody just scattered after that, and I couldn't see anything. And I remember like the bartender went in and got a glass of water, and comes out, and I'm like pouring water in my eyes to try to see again. And I had to like feel the walls and like feel my way to the elevator. I finally get up to my room, and I'm just getting to like to where I can see barely again. And I hear a boom, boom, boom at the door. And I looked at her and I was like, that sounds like the cops. And I was like, it's either the cops or them dudes found out what room we were in and they want some more sauce. So I go to the door and it was the police. And they said, Jacob? And I was like, yes, sir. And they said, we heard what happened to you. Can we come in? I said, I'd rather come out there if you don't mind. And they said, that's fine. So I go out into the hallway, and I said, I wasn't going to call the police, but since you guys are here, no, I ain't okay. And I said, I didn't come out here to raise hell and pick fights and get drunk. And you know what I mean? Like I come out here just to work this job and make my money and go home and be left alone. And I can't do that. This is where I live. And, I had to fight three dudes like the first time. And tonight there was like five of them. Like, what do I got to do? Fight 10 people next? And they said, well, unfortunately, Mr. Gentry, it's not even a crime to fight in the state of New Jersey. They said it's just a disorderly persons. It's a misdemeanor. They said unless they used a weapon on you, or unless you were seriously injured, or unless we personally witnessed the attack take place, we can't do anything about it. So I was just like, all right, whatever. Like the cops don't care. Obviously, I got to get out of here because somebody's about to get hurt. Because I'm not gonna
Right.
let these people beat me up, you know. And I got a newspaper, and I looked houses for rent, and the first place I found was in Port Jervis, New York. It was like an hour away. I was paying like 7 or 7.50 to live in that hotel a month, and it was like 15 minutes away from my job. Well, I go to move to New York, which is an hour away from my job, and I had to pay 1,500 a month plus $1,500 deposit. So I had to spend 3 grand, and it was a big inconvenience to me. But I knew I had to get out of there. And as we're walking out, with all our stuff, one of those bartenders, she saw us and like chased us outside to my truck and was like, "Where were you guys going?" I said, "Man, I got to get out of here. Like this is not going to end well. Like this is crazy." And she's like, "Well, the troublemakers got kicked out last night." And I'm like, "Oh, well, that really sucks because I've already given this lady money." So I moved out anyway, but had she told me that like before I paid that money, like I wouldn't have left because it was like I said, it was an inconvenience on me to move. Um, so we moved to a house in Port Jervis, and probably a month went by, and like My little brother was actually, he was working on a pipeline in Arizona, and he was on his way to Massachusetts to file an unemployment claim, because at that time Massachusetts had like this weird rule that you don't have to live or work in they paid the highest too. Back then it was like 550 a week, and that was more than any other state in the country. And you didn't have to live or work in Massachusetts. You just had to work. If you worked in 3 different states, you could file unemployment out of Massachusetts. I know that's weird, but it's true. Or it was.
Okay.
It used to be like that anyway. So he was on his way to Massachusetts to file an unemployment claim, and his truck broke down, or he wrecked in Neptune City, New Jersey. So I was like, yeah, don't worry about it, man. Just come out and stay with me till you get your stuff straightened out. And so he did. And there was a guy at work named Jose, and like he was always asking me to go out, and hang out, go out. And I said, well, my brother's coming tonight, and I want you to meet my brother. So, okay. And I told him we would. And so my brother gets to my house in New York, and he had just broken up with his girlfriend, just wrecked his truck, and he did not want to go out at all, and he told me that, I don't want to go. I don't want to go nowhere. And I was like, dude, like I told this guy we would, like, you know what I mean? Like I'm big on keeping my word. If I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I was like, please just do it for me. And I remember talking to my mom that night too, and she was worried. She's like, well, what about those guys? Like, and so I had seen Frog after that second fight. I saw him at work, and he wasn't like heckling me anymore. Like he saw me, he looked and he turned around and walked the other way. So I was just like, nah, that's over with, Mom. You ain't got to worry about that. So anyway, long story short, Jose, he comes out to the house in New York, and we drive Emily's car to a bar in Greenwood Lake, New York. Stay till like closing time. I'm drinking like Jaeger bombs, and uh, you know, at 2 o'clock they close by state law, and we are coming back from that, and I knew like a faster way to go than the way we came. And so I took a different way. And I've thought about this a million times. Like if I had just gone back the way we came and not took this way, none of this would ever. But there's a lot of those things that
Right.
could have made all this happen differently. But this is one of them. The route that I took home, because when we were coming back, we came upon, it's this restaurant. It's called the Jolly Onion, and it's in the place called the Black Dirt region of Pine Island, New York, and it's right by where we worked. And when Jose saw that restaurant, he realized that we were 15 minutes from the hotel. So he was like, hey, do you care to just drop me off at the hotel, and I'll get a ride up to pick my truck up tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah, all right, cool. Or no, I said, uh, if Emily doesn't care, Emily was driving. And I was like, if Emily don't care, I don't care. And she's like, yeah, that's fine. So we go to drop him off at the hotel, and it was still open. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're like legally required to be closed by 2. But they knew like them pipeliners had money and were spending money, so they were like illegally open still. And but he's like, come in and let me buy you one more drink. And now I heard all the troublemakers got kicked out, But what had actually happened, there was one guy, and he wasn't even kicked out for fighting me. He was kicked out for telling the bartender that he would kill her and kill her kids and bury them in the pipeline ditch. And he was part of the pipeline mafia, and would make them disappear. And she filed a report. She filed a complaint, and they told him he wasn't allowed to be at the bar anymore. But as fate would have it, they allowed him to come back that night. And then he was in there slapping people in the face, trying to get somebody to go outside and fight him. I didn't know it at the time, but I found out from the surveillance videos and witnesses who were there. Like the guy was in there trying to fight somebody. And so Jose asked me to come in, and I remember when I got out of the car, I looked up in the sky and I saw the full moon, and I felt, I knew, I was like, oh shit. Like I felt the feeling of like foreboding, like I knew something crazy was about to happen. And I thought so many times, I wish I would have just turned around and got back in the car and went home. But I walked in there, and I didn't even notice the guy in there. This was like the biggest one of them. He's one of the 2 that jumped me in the elevator after the first fight with Frog. And pretty sure he's the one that punched me in the back of the head. Like, you know, I couldn't see who punched me in the back of the head. I just know who was standing behind me when it happened. But anyway, I'm at the bar drinking, and Emily like whispers in my ear, like, that guy's behind you. And like I turn around and I see him there, and he's like glaring at me. And he put his hand out to like shake my hand, and I didn't take it. And anyway, one thing led to another. My brother is like, who's this? And I'm like, this is one of the guys that was jumping me. And the guy didn't like that, you know, that I said that. And he's like, you want to go outside? I ain't got to jump you. And I'm just like, whatever, bro. And you know, I'd been drinking and stuff, so I walked outside to fight the dude. And you know, I thought I just knocked him out, and you know, left, went home, threw my clothes on the floor, went to sleep. And woke up the next morning, like real super early, police banging on the door, gold badges all in the windows. And Emily went to the door, and I heard him say Emily. And like they knew our names and everything. They're like, you guys need to put some clothes on and come with us. They said, this guy named Dave said he had a fight with you. Could that be possible? And I'm like, yeah, it's possible. I'll tell you all about it. You know, I said, I guarantee you he ain't telling you the whole story. Um, so I gave them like a hundred. It started, you know, from the time they got me out of the house. You know, they had recorders on them, and the transcription ended up being 176 pages long. But I told them the whole story. How I can't, you know, the first time I ever met that dude, he was punching me in the face. You know, I didn't know him
Right.
before that. And anyway, I was like, I don't understand why y'all care. You know, you told me it's not a crime to fight. Like, you didn't care when I was getting beat up, so why do you care about him? And
Right.
well, he's hurt a little worse than you think he is. And I said, what's the matter with him? What's wrong? And they're like, we'll tell you in a minute. And like they just wanted me to keep talking, you know. They
Yeah.
want me to realize that I was there for what I was there for, and like lawyer up, I guess. But anyway, they end up pushing me in the courtroom, and it's on a Sunday. And I'm just like, am I gonna have a bail? Because you know I don't got time for this. Like I've got to be at work. Um, and they're like, yeah, you'll have a bail. And I go in there and stand in front of the judge, and I'm like, where do they have court on Sundays? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
what is this? Like, it was like a dream. And the judge says, you're charged with knowingly, purposefully, willfully inflicting serious bodily injury on David Earl Hallmark, resulting in his death, charged with first degree murder. And I'm just like, looking behind. I knew the guy's name was Dave, you know,
Right.
but even though I heard that, like, I'm looking behind me, like, who is? Like, I'm just here for fighting, not me. Not he ain't talking to me. And like, you know, they say denial is the first stage of grief, and I mean,
Right.
that's I felt that because I heard what they said, but it just did not register in my mind. My mind refused to process it. And so yeah, they took me back in a cell. I was they took me to the Orange County Jail in New York, where I waived extradition, and they then brought me to Sussex County, New Jersey, where it happened, which they're only like 15 minutes away or so. Uh, or man, maybe 30, 45. But while I was in jail in New York, like all the what that psychic told me all came back. It just all came back to me at once. She said in the middle of August, like I'm sitting there on August the 17th. I went out the night of August the 16th, dead ass in the middle of August, and my life was definitely ripped apart. It looked bad at first, you know what I mean? And I can remember telling that story like before I ever even went to trial. I was on like the maximum security block, and I remember like grown ass men crying. I'm like, but it's cool though, man. Like she told me this was gonna happen, but she also told me I was gonna come home. And I remember this dude just crying, and he kept saying, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." I'm like, "It's cool, bro. You cry if you need to. Like it's all good." And but I think about that guy a lot. Like I wonder if he knows, you know, that I'm home and everything.
Hey, real quick, just wanted to let you guys know that we're looking for guests for the podcast. If you think you'd be a good guest or you know somebody, do me a favor. You can fill out the form. The link is in our description box, or you can just email me directly. Email is in the description box. So back to the video. Did you get bond?
No, my bail was 750,000 cash. So I sat in there for like 3.5 years before my trial. I kept filing speedy trial motions, and the judge kept like denying them, saying, "Oh, 3 years is not a long time." um,
What did your lawyer say? Like, did they give you a public defender?
yeah, I had a public defender.
What'd he say?
Uh, he did the best he could. Like I'll never have nothing bad to say about him. Like he I remember him. He told me that he told the prosecutor, he's like, out of all the scumbag clients that I've had and all the people that I've represented him in my whole career as an attorney, he said there's one person that I would take to my house and have around my children. You know who it is? And told
No.
him it was me. And I did go to his house and meet his wife and his kids, and I spent the night at his house before. So yeah, I didn't bail out.
What happened at the trial? Like, you went to trial.
So yeah, I couldn't believe, like, there's just no way in my mind. I was like, there's no way that 12 people are all gonna say guilty. There's gonna be
Right.
at least one person to hear this story and say, no, I'm not going with y'all. I don't care if you have me in this room for 30 days. You know what I mean? I just knew there was hung jury would be the best they could hope for. But they came back with a verdict on. I
Well,
was acquitted of first degree murder, but they came back with an aggravated manslaughter conviction.
I don't. Did you get up and tell them the story?
I did. I took the stand in both trials.
Who else testified? That those all those guys like come back and tell their version of the story?
So yeah, they had Frog, and then they had no. They didn't bring Chris Frazee because Chris Frazee had a really bad criminal record. Like he had like beat girls up with pool sticks and done a bunch of bad. So they didn't want to bring him in there to show what kind of person because that's all you can prior bad act, like you can bring that up when they're on the stand
Right.
to like dispute their credibility. So they didn't bring Chris Frazee, who he was the other guy that jumped in the elevator, but they did bring Frog.
I mean, did he say that what really happened, or did he alter it?
Oh man, yeah, he. So Frog wasn't even there the night that the guy Dave ended up dying. You know.
Right, I understand, but there was a backstory of these
Oh
guys are
yeah. So
constantly.
so like what I told you about the safety meeting when they were all like smiling and pointing and laughing at me, and they said they were going to be waiting on me. I looked at Frog and I said, "I'll beat the brakes off you, dude." I said, "You without your buddies, like you can't you on your best day you couldn't beat me." And then the Chris Frazee dude, he said, I don't remember what he said, but he chimed in, and I was like, "Oh, they said they were going to be waiting for me." And I said, "Yeah, y'all do that." I said, I work on the environmental crew. I said, "I got about 5 machetes in the back of my truck, and they're sharp as hell." I said, "I'll stick one of them down the back of my pants, and the first one of y'all that lays a finger on me, I will sever your head." And then the guy Dave, he said something, and I was like, "Yeah, I got something for you too." And so yeah, as soon as it happened, those guys went to the detectives and were like, "Yeah, he said he was going to cut my head off, and he said he had something real special planned for Dave." I never said I got something real special planned for you. I just said I got something for you too. All y'all can get it. Like I'm not scared of none of you guys. Um, but yeah, and I remember one of their. I've still got like right out in that barn right there. I've still got all the reports and the statements. I've got the whole discovery and the trial transcripts and all that. But those guys,
How
they told the cops
how
like, "Oh, we just thought he was a punk. We weren't scared of him, and we didn't think he was nothing to be afraid of, but evidently he was." But I never
so
wanted none of this to happen. Like
how long was the trial?
how long did the trial last? A few months. I mean, jury selection was probably a couple weeks just for that. And they don't have it every day. It was like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I started picking my jury right around the time that the verdict for Casey Anthony was coming back, because I remember watching the Casey Anthony trial, and I said, "Watch, this bitch is going to get away with this, and they're going to smoke me. Watch and see." And that's what
So
happened.
you end up the jury comes back and ends up saying, not guilty on murder, but guilty on manslaughter. So what did you
Aggravated
get?
manslaughter.
Aggravated man.
Yeah. So
What
the
did you get?
difference between aggravated and regular reckless manslaughter is, so reckless manslaughter is you showed an indifference for human life and ignored a possibility of death. Aggravated manslaughter is you showed an extreme indifference for human life and ignored a probability of death. Now, the detectives asked me how many times did I hit the dude. They were like 50, and I was like, no, hell no, like maybe 10. And the medical examiner found that he was struck with approximately 11 blows, is what he said. So I was as honest as I could be about it. And I
Right.
don't think, even if you elbow somebody or knee somebody in the, you know what I mean, hitting somebody 10 times is not probably going to kill them. Like I've seen people get hit in the head with baseball bats and tire irons and all kinds of hammers and not die. But yeah, they found that I showed extreme indifference for human life and ignored a probability of death by fighting him and hitting him 11 times. Um, and they gave me 30 years with no early release plus 5 years for failure to render aid to an injured victim. So, and that was to be served consecutively to the 30. So basically, I got a 35-year sentence.
Like, I have a question. So you get 35 years. What did you feel like? Like, were you just,
You
what, were
know,
you numb?
yeah, like I expected it. Like I even called it. I remember the morning of my sentencing, the nurse said, "What's going on, Gentry?" I said, "I'm getting ready to go down here and cop this 30 piece," and I did. My lawyer was like, "Dude, you're coming back. You're coming back. Like they cheated you. Like just don't go down there and start acting crazy. Just chill out. You're coming back." And so I did. I stayed to myself and just stayed out of trouble. And the I remember when I found out who my appellate attorney was. My cellmate he's still in there. Like we still talk. I just got an email from him this morning, but he's been down for 20 something years, and he knew this old man named Ray Cat. Well, Ray Cagnon's real name is Aurelio, but he's like a Colombo family mobster. He like, I think, I'm pretty sure he's doing time for like whacking a mob boss or something. But he's like, "Come on, let's go down to the law library and talk to Ray." He said, Ray knows all. That's all he does is sit down in here and read case law, and he could tell you if your attorney's any good. So we go down there, and he's like, "Hey, Ray, man, what's up? This is my boy Country. Tell him who your lawyer is, Country." And I said, "Stephen W. Kirsch." And the old man said, "Steve Kirsch? Who's got Steve Kirsch? You got Steve Kirsch?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got Steve Kirsch." And he goes, "Kick back. You're already home." And I was like, "It's like that?" He said, "Well, I'll put it to you this way. Nobody can win them all. But I bet you this guy wins 2 out of 3." And so I go back to the cell, get on the phone. I call my mom. I'm like, Mom, uh, this guy's, they're saying that my lawyer's really good. And so I told my mom, and she contacted him, and then I talked to her again, and she's like, he said give him a couple months, to read your transcripts, and then he's gonna let me know what he thinks. So about 3 4 months goes by. She talks to him again, and she's like, he said that he's been doing this for 40 years, and if your case isn't the biggest injustice that he's ever seen in his career, it's definitely in the top 3. And he said he's got a rule where he does not take his cases home with him. Like he keeps his family life and his work life completely separated, but he is making it a point to do everything that he can do to get you out. And so
Right.
that sounded really good. Like it sounded really good, but kind of like with the whole sentencing, like you can't get your hopes up. Like you have to hope for the best and expect the worst, because if you get your hopes up too much and then things don't go your way, it'll crush you. And that's when people like kill themselves and stuff. So I had
Right.
to, you know, pr- brace myself for the reality of the situation, that, things might not go my way. But it sounded really good. He was saying he was going to do everything in his power to get me out and get me home. And a few more months goes by, and they argued the case. They argued the appeal in front of the appellate court and a panel of judges. And as soon as the guy walked out of the courtroom, he called my mom, and he said, "I don't ever do this. I don't ever say like we won before the
Right.
decision comes back, but we won." And so my mom told me that. And I'm just, like I said, it sounded good, but still, I still, even hearing that, like, until I'm walking out the doors, like, it doesn't, none of that means anything. So, I actually got shipped down to Rawway, and Rawway is just better in Trenton in every way. Like the food's better, you get more yard time. Like it's you can get guitars there, which that was the main thing that would make me happy. And I thought, if I got to do 30 something years, like I can get badass at guitar, and at least do something I want to do. So that was like my main goal, was to get a guitar and learn how to play guitar. But after being in Rawway for 5 weeks, I was standing next to like Tommy Clauso, who's like a president of the Pagans, or the president in absentee, or something, like a big uh 1%er biker, and me and him got kind of cool. Like the day I walked in there, we both had long hair and tattoos, and the police were like, "Is that your uncle?" And I was like, "Ah, that's my old man." I was just messing with him, but I guess somebody heard it, and it got around that I was his son. And like me and him, just like, we would just hang out, and I was sitting there hanging out with Tommy one night, and he got on one phone and I got on the other phone, and I called my mom, and I was like, "Hey mom, how you doing?" And she said, "Baby, I'm wonderful." And I knew when she said that what it was, but I wanted her to want to hear it. I said, "Why?" And she teared up, she started to cry, and she said, "'Cause you're coming home." And I start to tear up, like thinking about that, reliving that moment. Uh, but yeah, they reversed my conviction. They sent me back to Sussex County Jail, and they couldn't hold me on the murder bond anymore because I was acquitted of that in the trial. All they could hold me on was a aggravated manslaughter bond, which was the most they could set it at, was 300,000, which they did. And like a couple weeks later, I went for a bail reduction, and the judge, like, he was a smart ass. Like he was totally unprofessional. He like rolled his eyes and was just like, "All right, yeah, 275." Like, get out of my courtroom, stop wasting my time. You ain't gonna make bail anyway. And so anyway, like my dad, you just probably just seen him a second ago. He put it together. Um, and my mom came and it's like, "Give us our son." And I guess the prosecutor said, "Over my dead body, he's getting out." Like I don't know how the hell she thought she could stop it. But anyway, Steve Kirsch, my appellate lawyer, he told my mom, he said, "They are pissed. They do not want him getting out." And he said, "You need to get him and get out of the state of New Jersey as fast as you can, because they're so corrupt here." He said, "Those prosecutors will have the cops plant drugs on you and get both of y'all locked up." Like, that came from my appellate attorney, who works for the public defender's office in Trenton, New Jersey for 40 years. So
Right.
he probably knows a thing or two. And
Right.
so, yeah, my mom got me out of New Jersey as fast as she could. I went home to Tennessee. I saw my grandmother, who was dying of ovarian cancer. I started working on a pipeline job within like 3 days of getting out in Bourbonnais, Illinois. Uh, 6 months later, a matter of fact, on my birthday, December 8th, I started picking a jury in my second trial. And I'll never forget the very last person in the jury pool. The very last person in the room, and the state had used up all their strikes, but they kept cheating. They kept cheating and getting, like, having the judge like give them more strikes. It was crazy. Like, I could talk forever about they destroyed evidence, they hid witnesses, they coached witnesses, they had them up there fake crying, like theatrics, like out that dude. You can tell when somebody's faking. And
Right.
all their witnesses were getting up there and just putting on this fakest, phoniest show you ever seen in your life, and it's because the state told them to do it. But yeah, like, if you want to hear more about that, just ask me and I'll tell you. But where was that? Oh yeah, I turned around and looked behind me at the very last woman in the jury pool, and her name's Lisa. I didn't know. I know that now. Like, we're actually friends now. But she
Right.
smiled at me, and I was like, "Mom, mom, mom." It's like, that lady just smiled at me. Like, she don't hate me. You know what I mean? So I said, "I'm picking her." and I picked her to be on the jury. And apparently, at some point during the deliberations, a couple of the people were like, "All right, yeah, he's innocent of the manslaughter. We're gonna free him on that." But a couple of them were like, "But he didn't call 911. You know, he's guilty on leaving the dude and not calling for help." Well, they knew they weren't supposed to know that I'd already been to trial, but all throughout that whole trial, they're like asking the witnesses, "Well, didn't you say in a prior proceeding?" You know what I mean? Like it was blatantly obvious that this wasn't the first trial, and they
Right.
all knew it. And anyway, so I heard this from another one of the jurors that Lisa like threw her chair in there, and she was like, "He's not going back. He's done
Right.
enough time." And so they were like, "Okay, cool." And they acquitted me. That I got found not guilty on all counts uh, in the second trial, and
How do they let you? Well, I guess you were already on bond, so
I
you
was
just do
already
your base.
out on bail. Yeah.
So when your family put together the bond, right? Like, what do they have to do? Put up property, or do
No,
they put up?
they put up 275,000 cash.
Holy
They wouldn't
jeez!
do
Do
a
they get that?
property bond because it's not in the state of New Jersey. All my
Do,
parents, all my family's in Tennessee, so
do they get
they
that
won't
money
take
back?
in-state property. Huh?
Do they get that money back?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. See, they could have went with a bail bondsman, but that would have cost $27,500. You got to pay the bondsman 10%. So yeah, that's I didn't want them to lose out on 30 grand.
Right.
So they just saved up the whole thing and put it up, and they got it all back.
Once the whole thing is over, like they never like what do the prosecutors say? I mean, what are they saying? Like, are they?
I wanted her to look me in the face so bad. I just wanted her to look at me so bad. And there's like a picture of me in the newspaper with that like look on my face. Like I was just like red. Like it was a crazy adrenaline rush. And she just hung her head down and put her hair in her face, and she wouldn't look at me. And but yeah, I ended up suing them for wrongful conviction, and I settled out of court. You know, they first came at me with 150,000, and I was just like, no, that ain't enough. They came back at 225, and like all I ever really wanted was a little house, somewhere I could just kick back and not worry. And I asked my grandpa about it, and I was like, "What do you think, Pa?" And he said, "Well, son, sometimes a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush."
Mhm.
And after I took the two and a quarter, but after they paid all the lawyers and everything, I only ended up with like 135,000. But I bought a house and a motorcycle and a dog.
Right. What happened with Emily?
So Emily had gotten married. They actually flew out to Michigan to try to get her to. They're like, okay, well, they're not together anymore. Emily got married to some dude and had kids, and I guess they thought I don't know what they thought, but I saw the video of it, and Emily was like, "You can get your ass off my property." She ran them the hell out of there. But they just showed up at Emily's door one day. I guess gonna try to talk her into testifying against me in my second trial.
Mhm.
Yeah, she told them where they could take it. Uh,
What did she testify for you?
no,
Mm,
no.
that's not good. Like, I would, you would have it would have been better if she had been, maybe there for you.
So yeah, I mean Emily, we were all charged. Emily was my co-defendant. My brother was charged.
Really?
They kept them guys in county jail for 4 years, basically trying to get them to tell on me, you know. And then after I got sentenced to the 35 years, they let them go.
Mm. Um, so how much time did you do total?
Seven, about 7 years.
Expecting to do 35.
Yeah.
Is there good time connected with 35?
No, that's what the no early release. Or well, yeah, I guess technically, yeah. So the NERA is 85%. So there is like a 15% in there, but I don't think that's good time. That's work credits, or you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
So, but
but
yeah,
either
it's
way,
called
you're still
NERA,
doing
the No
30.
Early Release Act. So there is no good time, but they got to give you work credit, I think, which comes to the 15%.
Mm. Bro, I don't think you'd ever been charged in Florida.
Oh yeah, they got stand your ground. Oh, I didn't tell you this. I changed the law in New Jersey. So New Jersey has what's called the duty to retreat. That's the opposite of stand your ground. That means
I was
you got
gonna
to
say
run.
I'm supposed to run?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why they convicted me. But the appellate court ruled that just because I entered into a fight with somebody does not mean that I entered into a fight to the death. And that if the jury believed that at any time I became afraid for my serious bodily harm or my injury or death, that I could, in fact, use justifiable homicide. You know what I'm saying? And the jury had to be read that particular instruction that came down from the appellate court. They didn't know that it was my case, my own case, that caused that law to be made. But they were read that, and I get, that's what they found, that I did not have to run away if they believed that in the course of that fight it was escalated to a more serious matter. And yeah, they freed me.
So now you're I mean, what about like did you ever go back and find the fortune teller?
That's a good question.
Right?
I would have loved to. I was talking to a lady for a while, and we used to talk about it because did I tell you that? Yeah, I told you. She said I was going to live a happy life and have 3 children. Well,
Yeah,
I don't have
yeah.
any kids,
You
and
what?
she said I was going to live a happy life and have 3 children. I'm 43 years old and I don't have any children. But I
Okay.
was talking to a lady that has.
Well, who was the little girl?
Oh, she's my niece. That's my brother.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm like a rock star uncle. All of my nieces and nephews, like my parents, my mom calls me the Pied Piper because if I'm around, they don't want nothing to do with nobody else. But but yeah, so I used to talk to this lady, and she has 3 children, but they're all grown. They're, you know, almost my age probably. But we used to talk about going to try to find the lady, and I wouldn't even know where to. All I remember is that it was in the nice part of Chicago. It wasn't in the hood. Like there was like a Ferrari outside. Like it was in like
Right.
Midtown. That's all I know. But I mean, I guess stranger things have happened. I could go to the nice part of Chicago, and also, like I said, this was back in 2008. This was a long time ago. That lady's
Oh, yeah, yeah.
gonna be
I
real
know.
old. Like I don't know if she's even still doing that anymore. But yeah, that
Or if
would
she's
be
I was gonna say, or if she's even around.
right. Exactly.
Um,
But I would love to. I would love to find that. I would give a lot to be able to speak to her.
so you're saying the you said something about Vikings or something? I mean, are you Norwegian, Swedish? Are you
Well, so I'm mostly Scots Irish, but I've got my brother, my aunt, like they're real big into genealogy, and they've got our bloodline traced back to King William the Lion, the Scottish king. His actual name was Uliam, but they call it William today. But he's the guy that put the lions on the Scottish flag, and he was like a Knights Templar, and anyway, he was a Norman, and the Normans were Viking blood. That
right?
Northman. They came from the north, and but yeah, I've got some Viking blood in me, Celtic.
Yeah, I went to a family reunion, gosh, it was like 20 something years ago in Norway. Because I'm Norwegian, and I used to think I had some Indian in me, like Native American Indian, and my wife got me the
DNA test.
ancestry.
Yeah,
Bro, it's 100% Nordic, like everything, like it's all Norwegian, Swedish, um, a little bit of Danish, like it's all right there in kind of the Nordic region, right? So it's all no Indian, none.
right,
I got kind of an Indian, I got kind of like this. This isn't me laying out. I just have a little bit of a pinta or whatever you want to call it, a little tint to me.
right,
I don't know what's going on,
huh,
but yeah, I've been to Norway, and so when you said, you know, you said something about Vikings or something, and I thought, or did you say Vikings, or you said something made me think that and plus you're blonde. Look, you couldn't get any blonde hair. I mean, you're a grown man with blonde hair and blue eyes. That's extremely Nordic.
right. Now, yeah, I was talking about my axes. I've got some real axes.
Oh, okay, okay.
But
Alright.
the guy that actually makes them is from Pakistan, but he lives in Australia. But he's a very good wood carver. Well, he does the carving on the handles, and then he's got another blacksmith that makes the heads to them. But they kind of like work together. But he makes me some really cool stuff.
Do you throw them?
Well, he's this order that I'm waiting on right now. He's sending me some throwing axes. Uh, and I'm gonna get into, I'm gonna mess around with it a little bit. But so far I haven't, and I wouldn't throw the ones that I have now because they're too nice. I don't
Right.
want to scratch them up. They're pieces of artwork. They're
Yeah,
they're
I
hanging
went
on the
to a
wall.
I went to a buddy's party. He had this huge party. I mean, they had a Ferris wheel and everything. He's doing really well, and just a ton of people there. And one of the things they had was a guy that was there that you could throw axes. I couldn't get one fucking axe. Not one. My wife walks in. Whoo, boom, whoo, boom, boom. I'm throwing them. They're bouncing off. I mean, I just couldn't do it. I was like, this is humiliating. I got no chance. But anyway, yeah. So
Yeah, I'm gonna set up a little target out here and mess with it. He specifically makes axes for throwing too. I'll just shout him out. His name's H. His company is HG Axes, but he sponsors like axe throwing leagues and stuff like that. But he makes some really awesome stuff.
well, listen, I mean, is there anything else you want to cover? I mean, I
Uh,
feel like we got a
I
kind of
mean,
a condensed
could
version.
I could talk forever about this, man. So I'll tell you what happened with the destroying the evidence. I got a lot of like support from the community. Matter of fact, I can remember after I was convicted the first time, one of the COs in the jail came to my cell door, and his name was Officer Long, and he told me he was disgusted to wear that badge, knowing what they had done to me. Like the cops in that place were like for me. Matter of fact, during the second trial, the cop that works at the metal detector as you're going in, he's like, I played this song for you today. And it was The Innocent Man by Billy Joel. And he had it playing over the speakers in the courthouse. And another time, well, when my mom came to bail me out, uh, all the COs like lined up outside the door down the sidewalk and like took their gloves off and like shook my hand as I walked out of the place. And so like I had a lot of people behind me, And one day during the trial, there was a we would go for lunch break every day to the public defender's office, and there was a Chinese place down, just 100 feet away from the public defender's office, and we would go and eat this Chinese food. Um, and so as we're walking to the Chinese place, I pass this pet store, and this is a whole other side story. But these guys had believed that they were becoming patched into the Hells Angels because a guy named Billy Barger told him that he was Sonny Barger's son. And it all started over this guy. And I met all these guys in jail, like, and I kind of like became friends with them. But long story short, they drove to New Jersey and kidnapped this guy. And he was the wrong dude. He just had the same name as the guy that they were looking for. And they got caught. They kidnapped him, tasered him, threw him in the car, and got him all the way back to Missouri. And their car broke down, and the guy escaped. Like one of them fell asleep, or they fell asleep while they're supposed to be watching him or something. And the guy ran up in a store and was like, call the cops. And they came, and those guys got arrested for kidnapping. And I had been in jail, and I had known them pretty much all of the guys at some point in time, and I caught eyes with the guy that they had kidnapped, and I'm sitting there thinking like, I bet this dude hates my guts. Like, you know, I wonder, does he know that I've sat down and eaten with these guys that were probably going to kill him? Like what were they going to do? Like just turn him loose and be like, oh, we're sorry, man, wrong guy.
Right.
Let's just not tell nobody about this, please. Um, but yeah, I caught eyes with that guy, and we were locked eyes, and we were looking at each other, and it was just the weirdest feeling because I was just like, I bet he hates me. And at that very moment, like I turn around, and this lady comes walking up to me, and it was me and my mom standing there, and she said, "I'm from the community, and I want you to know that we support you." And so yeah, that was a crazy story, but I was going to tell you about all the just craziness that the state of New Jersey pulled to try to convict me. So the very first opening line of their opening statement said that I beat this guy to death, and I said he deserved what he got. And I said he deserved it, which that's true. But I had no idea that the guy was dead. You know what I mean? I thought he just beat him. I thought he was going to be back at work Monday morning. So I had no idea the severity of the situation, or I wouldn't have said that.
Right.
But they're trying to deceive the jury into thinking that you know. But that's kind of beside the point. But the first thing that I did when it all happened was like, look, get the security cameras from the hotel. You can see, everything I'm saying is true. I even had a like an 80-year-old lady named Patricia Prince, and I didn't even remember doing this, but luckily the investigators that worked for the public defender's office, they went out and they were like trying to get information, and this lady came forward, like an 80-year-old lady. She worked security there at the hotel, and she was like, "Yeah, he stopped at the front desk and asked for a security to take him to walk him to his room." Said that these guys were saying they were going to jump him, and he wanted a witness to, in case something happened, that so somebody, knew that he didn't start it. And that was true, but I'd forgotten all about that. But luckily, that lady came forward and she testified at my trial. But the very first motion I filed in court was a motion to preserve evidence of the video footage, the surveillance cameras from the hotel. Well, that was granted by the judge. So like 6 months later, my lawyer's like, we got the security cameras from the hotel. So I'm like, awesome. This is going to prove everything I'm saying.
Right.
And so then they open it up, and it's been recorded over pornography from the
Are you
Bergen County Sheriff's Office. Yeah. So they took. I wasn't even in Bergen County. I was in Sussex County, but they took the hard drive from the surveillance cameras from that hotel and sent them to the Bergen County Sheriff's Office, where somebody taped over it with a bunch of pornography. So now I make a motion to dismiss the case because you violated my, you know, order of protection, like my preserve. I had a motion to preserve, and which was granted. But the way the law is written in New Jersey is you have to prove that they did it in bad faith. And how am I going to prove? You know what I mean? It's my word
right?
against the police. And they're just like, oh, it was just an accident. Yeah, it's a mix up. We're sorry. We didn't mean to. And there was nothing I could do about it. And during the hearing that they had on whether or not they were going to throw the case out, my parents were both there. They drove from Tennessee to New Jersey to attend it because they're expecting them to let me go. And so the prosecutor goes in this little room with like their little tech guy, and my parents went and put their ears to the door and were listening to what they were saying in there. And they were, she was in there laughing, and like the guy told her, like, well, it could be brought back, but and she's like, well, if it was a matter of national security or something, but I'm not that important. It's just me. It's just my life. So it's not important enough to uncover it and get to the bottom of it. But yeah, my motion for dismissal of the charges was denied because they just said it was an accident. And not only did they do that, but there was a guy named Brandon Lewis, and he's the guy that was getting slapped around in the bar before I showed up there. And the state of New Jersey, um they tried to say, oh, he wasn't, he was just playing, he was just playing around with them. But there were people there that took the stand and told the truth, like, no, he was not playing at all, he wanted to fight. And we were trying to get this Brandon Lewis guy and have put him on the stand so he could testify. And like he's also the guy that walked outside and like found the guy laying there. um but they told us they couldn't find him, they didn't know where he was at. But now during the trial, while it was going on, me and my mother were staying at the Holiday Inn there in Newton, New Jersey, and my mom became friends with like the hotel manager. And I don't know how it even happened, but that hotel manager went in the records and they saw where the prosecutor's office, the Sussex County prosecutor's office, had a room rented with Brandon Lewis in that room. And he was in town and in the hotel room the whole time during my trial. And they said they didn't know where he was at.
Did that come out in the trial?
Nope. There was a lot of stuff that they covered up. Like they tried to say that this guy was a good person, and I took away this loving father of his family and all this. And they did what's called opening the door. It's called, so the way the law's written, that if I didn't know all these bad things he had done, uh, they can't be brought up unless they open the door to his character, which they did. They said he would. If I've got evidence to refute what they're saying, it's supposed to be admissible. But the judge denied it, and he, like I had. So they had to tell the lady, the bartender had to take the stand and say, yeah, he threatened he was going to kill me and kill my kids and all that, because she made a report and there was a paper, And as she got down off the stand, she walked past the prosecutors and said, "I'm sorry, like sorry, you're sorry for telling the truth," you know, because she got up there and fake cried too. Like both the bartenders got up there, fake cried. Peggy Floyd, the woman that beat up Emily, she got up there and fake cried. Um, but yeah, they tried their best to take my life, and luckily, I I got a good jury, and they weren't having it.
Why do you think that they were so adamant to try and convict you?
Um, I've always wondered the same thing. I don't know if it was, like I said, I had a a minor criminal history, with some like drug charges and things like that. Maybe they just was like, oh, he's a scumbag drug dealer, smoke him. Uh, Other than that, I don't know if it's because I had a girlfriend that was a stripper, like, but I
Right.
don't know if it's just, though prosecutors are just trained to do that, like that's their job. I really don't know why they hated me so bad and went so far out of their way to twist and distort. They're supposed to be the fact finders and the justice and you
Mm.
know, they're
Wouldn't
not.
that be nice?
Yeah, exactly. The justice system is not just at all. And but yeah, they hid witnesses, they destroyed evidence, they coached witnesses, the fake cry, and also they this is something else that they did. They had those bartenders say that they heard him say he was going out to burn one. He was going outside to smoke a cigarette. That ain't true. They begged the jury to believe that I went in there with the intention of luring him outside and beating him to death, which it's nonsense. But they had both those bartenders say that they heard him say that. Well, there's video that shows us getting up and walking out the door, and both those bartenders are turned around looking at a TV screen, looking up like this. Neither one of them moves their head at all. And if you heard somebody talking to you, aren't you going to at least turn around and look at them or something? But
Right.
as we walked out, their faces were stuck in a TV. But they both said that they heard him say he's going outside to burn one, because that fit with their theory
Narrative.
of the case, that I lured him outside to smoke a cigarette.
Right.
So yeah, it was wild, man. And that does something to your psyche when uh you see like the justice system, like that's supposed to be like the righteous people, and I think it's no accident that it's called the criminal justice system, because they're criminal as hell.
Well, do you have any social media or anything like that that you want anything you want to push? Like, could you
So I actually just started a YouTube channel like
nice.
10 days ago, and I've got 1,000 subscribers so far.
That's that's great.
And but
What's
yeah,
on the channel? What do you do on that? What do you talk what's the channel about?
so most of the people came from the after prison show, and so
Okay.
I do tell like some jail stories and stuff like that, and but really, I'm a real spiritual guy, man, especially after that psychic incident and all that. And there's other things, like if you watch my YouTube channel, you'll probably understand a little bit of why, because I've just had so many things happen that I have like no choice but to be who I am. But so I talk about a lot of like spiritual things. Like my first videos were on the law of attraction and angel numbers, and like experiences that I've had with that. Uh, I mean, you wanted me to tell about some of these things?
Yeah, well, I'm wondering what the goal of the channel is. I mean, you don't have to
So the goal
no
of the channel is I'm probably going to be saying some things that could get me in trouble, uh, exposing things. I study the occult. And
right.
the world is run by secret societies and occultists, and So, my family are all Christians, and everybody down here, they hear that word occult and they think that it means devil worship or evil. And the word occult comes from oculus, your eyes. It means hidden. Occult just means hidden, is all. And they're things that they're not taught to anybody, unless you, I guess, seek out the answers to that stuff. But so yeah, I'm gonna be. I talk about like magic, you know. So I'll tell you a little story real quick. When I first got to Trenton State Prison, they threw me in the hole for 6 weeks, starved you, you starved to death. They freeze you to death. There's just people screaming nonstop, and all the voices just blur together, and it's psychological torture basically. But after 6 weeks, they came and they unlocked my door, and they were like, "Come with us." They cuffed me up, through the little port, and they took me to a psychiatrist. And I walk in this room, sat down, and she said, "I'm Dr. Adrian Seraphin. I need to make sure you're not homicidal or suicidal before we put you in population." I said, "Seraphim are angels." And she said, "Yeah, I know." And I said, "No, I'm not homicidal or suicidal. Please get me out of the hole." And she said, "Okay." And she said, "Hey, you should sign up for my positive thinking class. It'll get you out of the cell." And I said, "Well, I'm all about positive thinking, because if I wasn't, I'd have hung it up a long time ago."
All right.
Exactly what I told her. So she signed me up. They put me in population, and about a week later, they came and they said, "Gentry, uh, you got positive thinking in the school." So I go down there the very first day, the very first minute of the very first class. She pulls out this book. I don't know if you ever heard of a book called The Secret. You ever heard of
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
All right, well, she pulls out the book The Secret and tells us, about the law of attraction. And everybody made a list of what they wanted. And obviously, I wanted my freedom. Number
Yeah.
one, I wanted to go home. That was my number one. Number two, I wanted a stone house. Well, it didn't even have to be made out of stone, but I wanted it to have stone veneer around it, and I wanted it to be built into the side of a hill. I wanted like half the house to be covered into the hill, and then the front half to have stone around it. Number three, I wanted a 2012 Ducati Diavel that was red, that had brushed aluminum intake fairings. And number four, I wanted a female American Bully that was just bad, a big bad dog that was battered, that put all the boys to shame. But I wanted it to be a girl, a big beastie girl. And
Oh, sleeping.
baby. Like, I saw this dog in my mind, bro. Like 7 years, before I ever actually But long story short, all of those things came true. I got my freedom. I bought a house with stone veneer siding built into the side of a hill. That Ducati is right out there in that garage, and my dog's right here. And after these things happen, like, how can that not change your life? How can you not want to tell other people? I would be not doing my duty as a human being if I knew that these things were real and I just kept it a secret.
It sounds
You
like
know?
you're still working on the wife and 3 kids.
Yeah, yeah, sure am. But I mean, the trick is not even to just believe it, but to know it, to know that it's already happened, and to be thankful, and to thank the universe for giving it to you.
Hey, sorry to interrupt the video. Just want to let you guys know that we're going to have an extra 15 or 20 minutes of content on my Patreon. It's $10 a month for about an hour's worth of extra content every single week. Back to the podcast. What's the YouTube channel name?
It's at Jacob's Ladder 111.
At Jacob's Ladder. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's how we got connected, right?
I'm
At
not.
Jacob's.
No, my email address is jacobgentry222.
Right. But I mean, someone had told me to contact you.
Right. Yeah,
And
I
that's,
thought you just emailed my regular email address.
I think I did, but I think that they sent it. This is like like customer. This is like a subscriber's like, bro, you got to talk to this guy. He's got an amazing story, and I think you'd already been on several other channels. And then I like listen. I'll respond to people like, bro, can you get me his contact information? And the guy came back, I think, with your contact information. I
Right.
think that's what happened. I
Yeah.
mean, I
No,
talked to
like
some
I said, I've not been on several other ones. There's a guy named Chad. Uh,
Marks, Chad
Mark.
Marks.
Yeah. He's the one to interview me today, actually.
He's good. Chad's good. And Chad's going to ask better questions because he's, you know what I'm saying? Like I do kind of true crime, but he's very interested in like the court cases because he does legal work. He did legal work for years. So he's going to be interested in the court cases. He's going to be interested in what happened in prison. You know, to me, I'm always kind of interested in like what got you here. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? But it seems like this was thrust upon you. This isn't something
Right.
it seems like you brought on yourself. And I'm shocked. Like I've lived in Florida my whole life. So I mean, I've always been of the nature, you know, or the thought that like, look, bro, like, you know, you don't have to back down. If someone comes in your house, if someone like the moment say, moment you in Florida, if somebody's here and you tell them get out, yeah, bro, you got to go. They better start walking. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you got these sheriffs in Florida who are, you know, people get into fights and you tell them to get out of your house and you tell them to kick rocks and you go get a gun and fucking shoot them. And they're like, hey, you told them to leave. You know,
Right.
in other cities or other states, they're like, "Oh no, you're going to prison now." It's like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa! How am I going to prison? I told the guy to leave out of my own house. I have a gun. I'm allowed to have a gun." Like, there's all these things that you hear these stories in other states. You're like, "Are you serious?" Like, the guy was on my property. I told him to leave. We got into an argument. Like, it just doesn't make sense. You hear guys get into fights in, you know, out in public, and somebody gets killed. It's like, okay, we were in a fight and someone got killed. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just what happens.
Yeah.
So
So I still am in contact with my appellate attorney, and I guess like my case law has like kept some people from going to prison and got some people out of prison.
yeah, I just don't see where I'm supposed to take off and run,
Yeah.
you know, especially in your situation. Listen, in your situation where there's multiple people, I would have fucking taken off. You know, you're still standing your ground. But I would have taken off not because it's my right to stay. I'd be like, there's fucking 4 guys. I'm out of here. This is not going to happen. I'm 5'6". This is not going to end well for me. Um, first of all, I appreciate you taking the time to, you know, taking your Saturday to tell me the story. So
I appreciate you for having me.
hey, you guys, I appreciate you guys watching the video. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. Also, we're going to leave Jacob's YouTube channel link in the description. So just click on the link. It'll take you straight to his YouTube channel. Subscribe, check out his videos, you know, try and show some support. I really appreciate you guys watching. Also, please consider joining my Patreon. It's $10 a month. I have exclusive Patreon content on Patreon. I really do appreciate you guys watching. See ya.